The Deep Space Patrol vessel glided silently through the inky blackness, its quantum resonance sensors probing the vast emptiness between star systems. Captain Zarok of the Stellar Reconnaissance Fleet barely noticed the tiny blue-green planet that flickered momentarily on the peripheral scanning array. Hundreds of thousands of such worlds had passed beneath his ship's sensors during his centuries-long career, each one a potential footnote in the galactic database. His crew consisted of 5 highly specialized observers from different advanced civilizations, each selected for their unique sensory capabilities and analytical skills. The Zorn Collective prided itself on comprehensive galactic mapping, leaving no stone unturned, no potential resource unexplored. This particular mission focused on cataloging emerging technological civilizations, a task that had become almost routine for the experienced crew. The ship's primary scanner, a complex array of quantum-entangled sensors, initially missed the subtle energy signatures emanating from the small planet. It was Lieutenant Mira, a sensory specialist from the crystalline nexus, who first noticed the anomaly. Her multispectral perception caught a strange harmonic resonance that didn't match any known planetary communication profile. "Captain," she called out, her crystalline voice creating subtle vibrations in the ship's communication matrix. "I'm detecting unusual signal patterns from the third planet of this system." Zarok adjusted his sensory tendrils, skeptical but intrigued. Most emerging civilizations produced predictable technological signatures, crude radio waves, basic electromagnetic transmissions that spoke of primitive communication attempts. But this was different. The signals had a complexity that defied standard classification. The crew activated the comprehensive analysis protocols. Layers of data began to unfold, satellite networks that seemed both sophisticated and chaotic, communication systems that jumped between multiple frequencies, computational grids that displayed remarkable adaptive capabilities. It was as if the planet's technological infrastructure was a living, breathing organism rather than a static network. What truly caught their attention were the seemingly random but intricate information exchanges. Unlike the linear, logic-based communications of most developing species, these transmissions carried multiple layers of meaning. They captured emotion, context, and potential that went far beyond simple information transfer. "Impossible," muttered the ship's computational analyst, a silicon-based life form whose entire existence revolved around mathematical precision. These transmission patterns suggest a level of cognitive complexity that shouldn't exist at this technological stage. The ship's database began cross-referencing the signals with millions of known civilizational profiles. Each comparison returned unexpected results. The planet's inhabitants seemed to break every established rule of technological development. Their communication was simultaneously inefficient and brilliantly adaptive, chaotic yet purposeful. Captain Zarok made a decision that would later be remembered as a pivotal moment in galactic history. "Prepare a detailed research probe," he commanded. "This world requires closer investigation." Little did they know that their curiosity would mark the beginning of humanity's extraordinary journey into the cosmic stage. The research probe descended through Earth's atmosphere with calculated precision, its adaptive camouflage technology rendering it nearly invisible to human detection systems. Inside the probe, a carefully assembled first contact team prepared for what they assumed would be a standard reconnaissance mission. They had processed thousands of planetary introductions across the galaxy, each following a predictable pattern of initial confusion, potential hostility, and eventual categorization. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked late in her advanced computational research lab, a converted warehouse on the outskirts of a major technological research hub. Her work bridged multiple disciplines: quantum physics, linguistic algorithms, and cross-cultural communication systems. Unlike many of her colleagues, she harbored a deep conviction that human potential extended far beyond current understanding. The alien probe's initial communication attempt was deliberately subtle, a series of complex mathematical sequences designed to test the technological and cognitive capabilities of the planet's dominant species. Most developing civilizations would respond with either complete confusion or a rigid linear attempt at mathematical communication. Humanity's response was anything but predictable. Within moments of receiving the alien transmission, Alina began a multifaceted deconstruction of the signal. She didn't just attempt to understand the mathematical sequence. She started to reinterpret it, introducing contextual variables that transformed the rigid alien communication into a dynamic, living language of information exchange. The alien research team watched in stunned silence as their carefully constructed communication protocol was not just understood, but creatively reimagined. Dr. Vex, the team's primary linguistic analyst, found his tentacle-like appendages trembling with a mixture of excitement and professional disbelief. "They're not just receiving the signal," Vex reported to Captain Zarek. "They're actively engaging with it. Look how they're introducing contextual layers, emotional resonance, potential interpretive pathways we never anticipated." The human response was a masterclass in adaptive communication. Where most species would attempt a direct, literal translation, Alina and her team were creating a hybrid communication system that merged the alien mathematical language with human linguistic complexity. They weren't just learning the alien communication protocol, they were expanding it, finding gaps, introducing nuance, and transforming it into something entirely new. Captain Zarek reviewed the incoming data streams, his extensive experience challenged by what he was witnessing. The humans were displaying a level of cognitive flexibility that defied every established galactic classification system. Their approach to first contact wasn't about submission or resistance, but about genuine, creative exploration. A secondary research team at a global communications center began running parallel analyses. Instead of a single group working on the alien transmission, multiple teams across different disciplines started collaborating in real time. Linguists worked alongside quantum physicists. Cultural anthropologists collaborated with computer scientists, creating a dynamic, interconnected approach to understanding the alien communication. The most surprising element was the human's emotional response. Unlike many species that approached first contact with fear or aggressive posturing, there was a sense of wonder, curiosity, and open-minded exploration. They weren't just trying to understand the alien communication. They were excited by the possibility of genuine interstellar dialogue. Dr. Rodriguez's team began developing adaptive translation matrices that could not just convert language, but capture contextual and emotional nuances. They were creating a communication framework that went beyond simple information transfer, introducing concepts of empathy, cultural interpretation, and dynamic meaning-making. The alien research team realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. This wasn't just first contact with another species. This was an encounter with a fundamentally different approach to communication, knowledge, and potential. Captain Zarek made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. "Full documentation protocol," he commanded. "We need to understand everything about this species' approach to communication and knowledge." Humanity had just entered the galactic stage, not as a passive recipient of information, but as an active, creative force of unprecedented potential. The Nexus conflict erupted like a supernova of destruction, consuming entire star systems in its wake. For millennia, the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy had fought a complex, multilayered war that defied traditional understanding of conflict. The battleground stretched across dimensional boundaries, with weapons that could unravel the very fabric of space-time. Captain Marcus Chen stood in the strategist's chamber of the United Earth Defense Coordination Center, surrounded by holographic displays that mapped the impossible complexity of the ongoing galactic conflict. Unlike the rigid military structures of other species, human strategic approach combined elements of psychology, game theory, cultural analysis, and real-time adaptive thinking. The conflict originated from an ancient dispute between the Silicon Collective and the Plasma Emanation Network, two civilizations so technologically advanced that their war had become a mathematical ballet of destruction. Entire star systems had been reduced to cosmic dust, billions of sentient beings erased in computational precision that showed no regard for life. Most galactic species approached the conflict with traditional strategic models, They analyzed battle patterns, calculated probabilities, and developed increasingly complex weapon systems. Each civilization brought its unique technological advantages: the Silicon Collective's quantum computational abilities, the Plasma Network's energy manipulation, the Crystal Harmonic's dimensional warfare techniques. Humanity's approach was fundamentally different. Captain Chen began by breaking down the conflict not as a military engagement, but as a complex system of interconnected motivations, historical traumas, and psychological patterns. Where other strategists saw mathematical equations, he saw a web of emotional and cultural interactions that could be carefully manipulated. His team developed a revolutionary strategy that combined multiple disciplines. Anthropologists worked alongside quantum physicists. Cultural psychologists collaborated with computational experts. They began to see the Nexus conflict not as a war to be won through firepower, but as a complex system that could be transformed through strategic intervention. The first breakthrough came when the human strategic team identified a series of deep-rooted communication failures between the Silicon Collective and the Plasma Emanation Network. These weren't just technological differences, but profound misunderstandings that had calcified over millennia of non-communication. Using a combination of advanced communication protocols and carefully constructed diplomatic interventions, the human team began to create alternative pathways of understanding. They introduced mediation techniques that went beyond traditional diplomatic approaches, using adaptive communication models that could bridge seemingly insurmountable differences. Military strategists from other civilizations watched in disbelief. The humans weren't trying to defeat the warring parties. They were attempting to fundamentally change the nature of the conflict itself. They introduced game theory models that showed how continued destruction was mathematically disadvantageous for both sides, presenting alternative scenarios that offered mutual benefit. The turning point came during what became known as the harmonic intervention. Using a combination of quantum communication technologies and deeply nuanced cultural translation systems, the human team created a communication bridge that allowed the Silicon Collective and the Plasma Emanation Network to truly understand each other for the first time. It wasn't a victory achieved through superior weaponry, but through a profound understanding of communication, motivation, and collective problem-solving. The conflict didn't end with a traditional surrender. Instead, it transformed into a collaborative effort to address the underlying issues that had driven the millennia-long war. The human approach demonstrated a fundamental truth about conflict resolution that went beyond technological capabilities: the power of genuine understanding. Captain Chen's team had done what no civilization had managed in thousands of years. They had turned a seemingly unresolvable conflict into an opportunity for mutual growth and understanding. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence. Humanity had not just participated in a conflict, they had redefined the very nature of conflict resolution. The strategic models would need to be completely rewritten, and a new approach to interstellar diplomacy was about to emerge. The Nexus conflict became a turning point in galactic history, with humans at the center of a revolutionary approach to understanding and resolving complex interstellar challenges. The research facility stood as a testament to human innovation, a gleaming complex that defied traditional architectural and technological boundaries. Dr. Sarah Nakamura led a team of interdisciplinary researchers who were redefining the relationship between biological systems and technological advancement. Most advanced civilizations view technology as an external tool, a separate entity to be wielded and controlled. Humans saw technology differently. They understood it as an extension of human potential, a living, adaptive system that could grow, learn, and integrate with biological consciousness in ways no other species had ever conceived. The breakthrough came from an unexpected convergence of neuroscience, quantum computing, and biomechanical engineering. Dr. Nakamura's team had discovered a method to create neural interfaces that were more than simple connections. They were living, adaptive bridges between human consciousness and technological systems. Initial prototype tests revealed capabilities that shocked the scientific community. Researchers could now interface directly with complex computational systems, not through rigid input methods, but through a fluid, dynamic exchange of information. The neural interfaces didn't just read brain signals, they interpreted intent, anticipated needs, and evolved alongside the user's cognitive processes. Military researchers quickly recognized the potential. The first generation of enhanced defense personnel could now control multiple complex systems simultaneously. A single human operator could manage entire starship networks, coordinate defensive strategies, and process multiple streams of information with unprecedented efficiency. But the true marvel was the adaptive nature of these interfaces. Unlike static technological augmentations used by other species, these neural connections were living systems. They learned, grew, and transformed with each interaction. A pilot interfacing with a starship didn't just control the vessel. They became a unified system, with the boundaries between human and machine becoming increasingly blurred. The Galactic Scientific Consortium sent research teams to understand this unprecedented technological approach. What they discovered challenged everything they knew about biological and technological integration. Human neural interfaces displayed a level of adaptive intelligence that defied conventional understanding. They could rapidly reconfigure themselves to address new challenges, learn from unexpected inputs, and develop creative solutions in real time. Where other species' technological augmentations were precise but rigid, human systems were fluid, creative, and seemingly alive. Medical applications emerged rapidly. Individuals with physical limitations could now interface with advanced prosthetic systems that responded with near-organic precision. Neurological conditions that were previously untreatable became manageable through adaptive neural networks that could rebuild and reconfigure neural pathways. The most extraordinary demonstrations came during extreme environmental challenges. Researchers developed interface systems that could help humans adapt to environments previously considered uninhabitable. Deep-sea exploration, extreme planetary conditions, even the harsh vacuum of space became accessible through these revolutionary technological symbiosis techniques. Dr. Nakamura's team discovered something even more profound. The neural interfaces weren't just technological tools, they were a new form of evolutionary adaptation. Humans were essentially creating a method of technological evolution that worked in real time, allowing for immediate adaptation to new challenges. Space exploration teams became the first true test of this technology. Pilots could now interface with entire starship systems, feeling the vessel's structural integrity, sensing potential mechanical issues before they became critical, and making split-second decisions that integrated human intuition with computational precision. The Galactic Research Council watched with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Humanity had discovered a method of technological integration that went beyond anything previously imagined. It wasn't just about augmenting human capabilities, it was about creating a new form of adaptive intelligence that blurred the lines between biological and technological systems. As the research continued, one thing became clear: humanity was not just using technology. They were creating a living, breathing partnership between biological consciousness and technological potential that would reshape understanding of intelligence itself. The age of technological symbiosis had begun, and humans stood at the forefront of a revolution that would change the galaxy forever. The Great Galactic Mediation Chamber looked like nothing humans had ever encountered. Crystalline walls shifted with holographic representations of complex diplomatic histories, while delegates from multiple civilizations sat in configurations that defied traditional spatial understanding. Some participants existed as pure energy signatures, others as biomechanical constructs, and a few as consciousness matrices that barely resembled organic life. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of this impossible gathering, representing humanity's diplomatic corps. She carried with her not just diplomatic credentials, but a lifetime of research into cross-cultural communication, psychological dynamics, and the intricate web of motivations that drive sentient interactions. The conflict between the Silicon Collective and the energy consciousness had raged for millennia. Their fundamental differences seemed insurmountable. The Silicon Collective experienced reality through precise computational models, valuing logic and mathematical perfection. The energy consciousness perceived existence as a fluid, emotional landscape of interconnected experiences, where feelings and vibrational states were the primary mode of communication. Previous diplomatic missions had failed spectacularly. Thousands of years of attempted negotiations had resulted in nothing more than increasingly complex misunderstandings. Entire research teams had been disbanded, diplomatic corps dissolved, and multiple civilizations had given up on any possibility of resolution. Dr. Rodriguez approached the challenge differently. Instead of trying to find a common ground through traditional diplomatic channels, she began by deeply understanding the core experiences of both civilizations. Her approach wasn't about compromise, but about genuine understanding. She spent months immersing herself in the communication matrices of both groups. For the Silicon Collective, this meant understanding their computational language, not just as a series of mathematical equations, but as a complex emotional expression of their collective experience. She learned to see their precise calculations as a form of emotional communication, each algorithm a nuanced expression of their collective consciousness. With the energy consciousness, she developed techniques to perceive their vibrational communication. Where others saw incomprehensible energy patterns, she began to recognize emotional landscapes, complex stories of experience that transcended traditional linguistic barriers. The breakthrough came during what became known as the resonance session. Dr. Rodriguez introduced a communication protocol that was neither computational nor purely emotional, but a hybrid approach that could translate between these fundamentally different modes of experience. She revealed the hidden connections between the Silicon Collective's computational models and the energy consciousness's emotional landscapes. Both civilizations had been fighting because they couldn't see how their seemingly opposite approaches were actually different expressions of the same fundamental desire to understand and be understood. The Silicon Collective had been seeking perfect computational models to explain existence, while the energy consciousness had been exploring the emotional dimensions of experience. Both were attempting to comprehend the nature of consciousness, just through radically different methodologies. Dr. Rodriguez's presentation wasn't a traditional diplomatic argument. It was a living, dynamic exploration that allowed both civilizations to see themselves through each other's perspectives. She used adaptive holographic representations that could shift between computational and emotional modes, creating a bridge of understanding that no previous diplomatic mission had conceived. The mediation lasted what seemed like both moments and eternities. Time itself became a fluid concept as the two civilizations began to understand each other in ways they never thought possible. The boundaries between their fundamentally different modes of existence began to blur, revealing a shared essence of curiosity and exploration. By the mediation's conclusion, something extraordinary had happened. The Silicon Collective and the energy consciousness didn't just reach an agreement, they began a collaborative process of mutual understanding that would reshape their entire approach to existence. The Galactic Diplomatic Corps watched in stunned silence. Humanity had done what no other civilization had managed. They had transformed an impossible conflict into an opportunity for genuine connection. Dr. Rodriguez had proven that empathy was more than an emotional response. It was a sophisticated method of understanding that could bridge seemingly insurmountable differences, a powerful tool of communication that went far beyond traditional diplomatic approaches. The quantum anomaly emerged without warning, a swirling maelstrom of impossible geometries that threatened to unravel the fundamental fabric of space-time. Most advanced civilizations had long since developed early warning systems for such cosmic threats, but this particular phenomenon defied every known method of detection and containment. Commander Rachel Chen stood on the bridge of the Earth defense vessel Horizon, her team a perfect example of humanity's unique approach to unprecedented challenges. Unlike the rigid military structures of other galactic species, this crew represented a dynamic blend of scientific expertise, psychological adaptability, and collaborative problem-solving. The Void Swarms, as they would later be known, represented a threat that had already consumed 17 advanced civilizations. These quantum-consuming entities moved beyond traditional understanding of physics, consuming entire star systems by unraveling the very molecular bonds that held matter together. The Galactic Defensive Council had already declared these entities uncontainable, recommending complete evacuation of affected sectors. Humanity saw something different. Where other species saw an insurmountable threat, Commander Chen's team saw a complex system to be understood and potentially redirected. Their approach combined quantum physics, advanced computational modeling, and a uniquely human capacity for creative problem-solving that defied conventional strategic thinking. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, a quantum ecologist on the team, realized that the void swarms weren't simply destructive entities. They were complex adaptive systems with their own form of evolutionary logic. Unlike other civilizations that had attempted to destroy or avoid the swarms, the human team began to study their fundamental nature. They developed a series of adaptive communication protocols that could interface with the quantum-level consciousness of the void swarms. Most species would have considered this impossible. Humans saw it as an interesting challenge. The dimensional shifting entities presented an even more complex problem. These were beings that existed simultaneously across multiple planes of reality, capable of manipulating fundamental dimensional structures. Previous encounters had resulted in complete destruction of entire research teams. The human approach was fundamentally different. Instead of viewing these entities as threats to be eliminated, they approached them as complex systems to be understood and potentially communicated with. Commander Chen's team developed adaptive quantum interfaces that could temporarily synchronize with the dimensional shifting entity's unique form of existence. They created computational models that could predict and potentially negotiate with beings that existed outside traditional understanding of time and space. Their success was nothing short of miraculous. The void swarms, which had consumed entire civilizations, found themselves engaged in a form of communication they had never experienced. The human team didn't fight the entities. They introduced them to new ways of perceiving existence, showing them alternative paths of interaction that didn't require systematic destruction. With the dimensional shifting entities, they discovered a method of creating temporary dimensional bridges that allowed for mutual understanding. Where previous encounters had resulted in complete annihilation, the human approach opened possibilities for coexistence and mutual exploration. The Galactic Defensive Council watched in absolute astonishment. Humanity had not just defended against these cosmic threats, they had transformed the very nature of the interaction. These weren't victories achieved through superior firepower, but through an unprecedented approach to understanding and communication. As the quantum anomalies began to stabilize and the dimensional rifts started to close, something extraordinary became clear. Humanity had demonstrated a capacity for cosmic problem-solving that went far beyond traditional military or scientific approaches. They were becoming something more than just another species in the galactic landscape. They were becoming guardians of the unknown, with an ability to transform threats into opportunities for understanding. The universe itself seemed to be taking notice. The Galactic Council chamber existed in a state of perpetual quantum suspension, a meeting space that transcended traditional physical limitations. Representatives from thousands of advanced civilizations gathered, some as physical beings, others as energy matrices, a few as collective consciousness systems that defied individual definition. For millennia, the Galactic Council had operated on a rigid system of hierarchical influence. Technological capability, resource abundance, and historical dominance determined a civilization's political weight. Entire species were categorized, ranked, and essentially predetermined in their potential for contribution and growth. Humanity's emergence shattered every established political model. The transformation began subtly. Human diplomatic teams didn't seek power through traditional means. They didn't negotiate with threats or displays of technological superiority. Instead, they introduced a revolutionary concept of collaborative problem-solving that made previous diplomatic approaches seem embarrassingly primitive. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now the primary human representative to the Galactic Council, approached diplomacy as a complex adaptive system. Where previous diplomatic missions had been about territorial negotiations and resource allocations, she introduced frameworks that emphasized mutual growth, shared challenges, and collective potential. The first major shift came during the Interstellar Resource Allocation Summit. Traditionally, such meetings devolved into complex negotiations where powerful civilizations carved up potential resource-rich sectors. Humans proposed a fundamentally different approach, a collaborative model where resource development became a shared opportunity rather than a competitive endeavor. Their proposal included adaptive development strategies that would benefit multiple species simultaneously. Instead of viewing resources as limited commodities to be fought over, they presented them as opportunities for collaborative innovation. The mathematical models they introduced showed how cooperative development could create exponentially more value than competitive acquisition. Scientific research protocols underwent a complete transformation. The human approach to knowledge sharing challenged every existing galactic research standard. Where most civilizations guarded technological discoveries jealously, humans proposed open-source collaborative research models that allowed for rapid, multi-species innovation. The technological implications were staggering. Research that would have taken centuries under traditional models could now be completed in years, with insights from multiple civilizations creating breakthrough after breakthrough. The humans had essentially redesigned the concept of scientific progress. Political representation sought its most radical transformation. The Galactic Council had always been structured around technological capabilities and historical influence. Humans introduced a new model that valued adaptability, problem-solving potential, and collaborative capacity over raw technological power. Smaller civilizations that had been marginalized for millennia suddenly found themselves with meaningful voices. The human-introduced framework didn't just give them a seat at the table. It created entirely new tables where different forms of contribution could be recognized and valued. The most profound change came in how civilizational potential was understood. No longer were species judged solely by their technological achievements. Creativity, adaptive thinking, empathy, and collaborative potential became the new metrics of galactic significance. Educational and cultural exchange programs exploded in complexity and depth. Humans didn't just share information. They created immersive learning experiences that allowed different species to genuinely understand each other's perspectives. Entire academic disciplines were reimagined, with interdisciplinary approaches becoming the new standard. During one particularly memorable council session, a representative from an energy-based civilization remarked that humans had done something unprecedented. They had transformed galactic politics from a zero-sum game of competition into a complex, adaptive system of mutual growth. The old power structures crumbled not through conflict, but through a more powerful force, a fundamentally different way of perceiving collective potential. Humanity had introduced a new paradigm of existence that went far beyond traditional understanding of political interaction. They were rewriting the very rules of galactic civilization, not through force, but through an unprecedented capacity for understanding, creativity, and collaborative innovation. The universe was watching, and everything was changing. The universe held its collective breath. Generations of cosmic exploration had led to this moment, a comprehensive understanding of humanity's true nature. What began as a seemingly insignificant species on a small blue planet had transformed into the most dynamic force of potential the galaxy had ever witnessed. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Comprehensive Research Consortium, presenting findings that would redefine understanding of sentient evolution. His presentation wasn't just a scientific report. It was a profound exploration of what made humans fundamentally different from every other known civilization. The key wasn't in their technology, though that was revolutionary. It wasn't in their diplomatic capabilities, though those had reshaped galactic interactions. The true marvel was humanity's capacity for adaptive intelligence, a form of cognitive and emotional flexibility that defied every established model of sentient development. Where other species had rigid evolutionary paths, humans demonstrated an unprecedented ability to reimagine themselves continuously. Their biological, technological, and cultural systems weren't static. They were living, breathing ecosystems of potential. Each challenge became an opportunity for transformation, each limitation a chance for creative problem-solving. The research revealed something extraordinary. Human consciousness wasn't just a biological phenomenon. It was a dynamic, adaptive system that could reshape itself in real time. Their neural networks could reconfigure themselves, their technological interfaces could learn and grow, and their cultural systems could evolve with breathtaking speed. Most fascinating was their approach to existence itself. While other civilizations viewed challenges as problems to be solved, humans saw them as opportunities for growth. Their seemingly chaotic creativity was actually a sophisticated form of adaptive intelligence that could transform potential threats into collaborative possibilities. The dimensional researchers presented their most startling findings. Humans had a unique ability to perceive multiple perspectives simultaneously, a cognitive flexibility that allowed them to exist in complex, multidimensional problem-solving spaces that other species couldn't even comprehend. Their emotional intelligence was equally revolutionary. Where most advanced civilizations had developed communication systems based on pure logic or energy transmission, humans had created a nuanced approach that integrated emotional depth, rational thinking, and creative potential. The Galactic Archive began a comprehensive rewriting of its fundamental understanding of sentient potential. Humanity wasn't just another species to be categorized and understood. They were a living example of evolutionary possibility. Dr. Rodriguez's final presentation revealed the most profound insight. Humans weren't defined by their current capabilities, but by their potential for continuous transformation. Their greatest strength wasn't any single technological or cultural achievement, but their fundamental ability to reimagine themselves continuously. The research showed that human potential wasn't linear. It was exponential, adaptive, and fundamentally unpredictable. Every time the galactic community thought they had understood humanity, the species would introduce something entirely unexpected. Representatives from thousands of civilizations listened in stunned silence. The species they had once considered insignificant had become the most important evolutionary case study in galactic history. Their approach to existence challenged everything previously understood about intelligence, adaptation, and potential. Humans didn't just solve problems. They transformed the very nature of problem-solving. They didn't just communicate. They created entirely new forms of understanding. As the presentation concluded, a representative from the crystalline consciousness spoke, her energy matrix vibrating with a mixture of awe and excitement. Humanity represents something more than a species, she said. They are a living demonstration of the universe's capacity for continuous reinvention. The ultimate truth was both simple and profound. Humans weren't just adapting to the universe. They were actively reshaping its fundamental understanding of potential. They had transformed from a small, seemingly insignificant species to the most dynamic force of evolutionary possibility ever witnessed. The galaxy watched, wondered, and prepared for whatever humanity would do next.